Cool. I hope there's some developers here today. Hello, my name is Bryant, and today I'd like to talk about test-driven development. So we'll talk about what it is, why it's awesome, and then go over a number of the myths that are out there to debunk for the skeptics. So what is it? It's really simple. It's 3 simple steps in a cycle. It's first write a failing test, then add some code to make the test pass, and finally refactor to remove duplication and add clarity. Now this is great for testing because when you write your test first, the code that you haven't written is like a black box. And when you make the test pass, you remove false positives. Your tests become a safety net for refactoring, which helps you to eliminate technical debt. Now, as you're refactoring, patterns will emerge and you will find more meaningful abstractions in order to improve your design. You can get into kind of a flow by breaking your work up into increments that helps you build confidence in building more maintainable code. So, now some of you may still be a little skeptical. And there's a lot of misinformation out there, so I don't blame you. Let me see if I can change your mind. You can't see, but he's glaring. So the first thing is it takes too long. Now, I find this is generally because people are trying to test all the permutations, and they're also trying to test code that's not there. So I strongly suggest test only your code and do only the tests that are helpful to you, right? You don't have to refactor everything just to get started. There's something simple called method extract where you can take just a piece of it and write a specification for that. And that's it. This is usually with legacy code, by the way. So another thing is, people say it slows me down, and this is because generally I find they're overcomplicating it, but most importantly, TDD is a skill, and you have to recognize it as that. And so it takes time to learn, but when you do, you get faster at it. DHH, the creator of Ruby on Rails, talks in a blog post about test-induced damage, and I think he has a lot of solid points. So the next couple slides are going to talk about what I think causes test-induced damage. And the first thing is unit tests. Now unit tests, I think they suffer from a case of a bad definition because, here's one example. Objects, testing methods. We can do better. I like isolated tests that test specific isolated scenarios in your code, and they're fast. Now, if you go with that definition, none of these matter, right? It doesn't matter. So they can all fit that definition. And by the way, for context, all these for me run in about 5 seconds. So that's fast. If you go with the old definition, this usually leads to dependency injection, which is hard to read code and requires mocks to test and keeps you from being able to see easy design improvements from simple refactors. Some things people like to do is randomize their tests and make them like test more things, sort of black box like, but you really only want your tests to fail when you make them fail. So you don't want them to fail by chance. Some people like to set some arbitrary metric for code coverage, but the problem with this is that code coverage, while it's a great tool, it doesn't tell you whether you're doing a great job of testing, and it's too easy to game. Now I know that all of our tests are precious, like these kittens, but if you have tests that are testing the same thing, it's a lot of responsibility. Keep the ones that are actually important, because there's a maintenance cost. Now, I know there's you got all these failing tests, right? And so the first thing you gotta do is fix all those failing tests and then you can move on. Well, those tests aren't giving you any feedback, no one understands them, delete them, ignore them. So some people think you need permission to use TDD, or I'm not paid for tests, but let me ask you this. What would you think of a plumber that used duct tape? So, hopefully you've learned that TDD can help you with refactoring, design, testing, confidence. And it's a tool, and like any tool, it can be misused. So, don't make it so hard, right? Make it simple. Make it a valuable tool for yourself. Don't overthink it. And start tomorrow. My name's Bryant. You can find me Bry's a Guy on Twitter and GitHub. And I also have a testing framework project called Guardian.js. And give me a pull request, check it out, give me feedback. Thanks so much for letting me talk.